No, no bus. A Just Bees book club. Today, we are talking Come Back, Dr. Caligari. Caligari? I don't know. By our old friend, Donald. 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 Barthelme. I have spent zero time learning how to better pronounce his name since, well, as loyal viewers will know. Um, Old Donald was our Donald Barthelme was Donald Bartlemy, Donald Barthelme, Donald Bartlemy. Great question. Could be answered with the cursory search that I've just not done. Um, was the subject of the first? No, no buzz. Just Beast Book Club with the Dead Father, a book that I was very interested in its concepts of or its approach to gender. Donald Barthelme is that's just what I'm sticking with at this point. Donald Barthelme is a, writer of, I guess, absurdist fiction in some sense. Certainly in this book, at least. He does experimental work with narrative and literature. This comeback, Dr. Caligari, is something that, at least the edition I have, is published by Anchor Books in 65. It's copyright of Barthelme by in 61 through 64. It is a collection of short stories that seems to have been initially published um, in 1964 as a book. I still don't understand editions really. With cover art by Edward Gorey, who some people like, I guess. Maybe you're one of them. Maybe you are. Hey, you. I'm not here to judge because this is just for bees. It's a just bees book club. Only bees are here. Um, yeah, it's a collection of short stories. Let's read some titles really quick. The contents. Florence Green is 81. This is a short story about attending a dinner party with a woman who is 81 years old who has $300 million dollars and is thinking about moving out of the country. There's The Piano Player, which is a like 3-page short story about a husband and wife who are at odds, and the wife insists the husband is worried about a piano, and then the piano kills him. There's The Hiding Man, which I have no memory of it. Oh, yes. This is a story in which a man goes into a movie theater because he enters all open doors. Uh, he meets another man there who wants to ask him some questions. There is a conversation about faith and the church, and a reveal that the other man is a priest. There's "Will you tell me?" question mark. It's on page 29 in this edition, which oh, this is like a whole thing. Yeah, the first line of this is Hubert gave Charles and Irene a nice baby for Christmas. The baby was a boy and its name was Paul. Charles and Irene, who had not had a baby for many years, were delighted. They stood around the crib and looked at Paul. They could not get enough of him. Blah, blah, blah. Where did you get him, Hubert? Charles and Irene asked. From the bank, Hubert said. It was a puzzling answer. Um, it's about this like weird group of people that I didn't really follow. It's like presented in sort of chapters, I guess. They're like breaks. Oop. This has always been a bad idea on this channel with this lighting, but you can see like there's a little 4 right there. That's the fourth part of this story, I guess. I don't know. Um, it seems to be about like bourgeois couples, I guess, is kind of the general sense I got. Um, Next story is For I'm the boy whose only joy is loving you. Again, that title gives me no context, so I'm flipping through to it. Um, mm, mm. Oh, this is the one that's written kind of. This is my one of the more like explicitly experimental ones. In the like, there's no so so when you read, often you expect there is a certain way in which dialogue is written, right? There, there's a paragraph break and a tab, and then the opening like quotation marks, and the things that someone is saying, and then an explanation of what has been said, or and then rather not an explanation of what had been said at all. That would be a very different paradigm under which we would be working. It is a you know on a keyboard you hit enter, tab, open quotation, the things that are said, end quotation, and then character's name said, or character's name exclaimed, or character's name ejaculated, or character's name um, demurred, or whatever sort of word for saying a thing is relevant in the particular context in which it was said. This is a story in which that does not happen. The way dialogue is written out in this one is that it's almost always uh, something like it's a sentence that is just in line with the rest of the paragraph. So two characters will be talking and it will all be in one big block of a paragraph. And generally how you can tell that it is who or like what's happening is that it will be um, one, maybe two words, and then no punctuation whatsoever around those words, except for the period that ends the previous sentence. So it'll be like delighted, Whittle said, and then a full sentence after that with no visual marking of the fact that this is a quote, um, which is both the most and least interesting version, I think, of this this experimentation that Barthelme is doing. I don't remember any. I don't think I internalized a fucking thing about uh, what this like action, what the story is about. But it was a good example of his messing with craft, I guess. The next story we have is the Big Broadcast of 1938. Ooh, uh, right. This is about a radio broadcaster who plays the Star-Spangled Banner, like according to this. He played it daily 60 times between 6 and 10 a.m., 120 times between 12 and noon, and 7. Oh, sorry. 120 times between 12 noon and 7 p.m., and the whole night long, except when, as was sometimes the case, he was talking. So this is like a dude who's like relitigating an old love affair over the radio between playing the Star Spangled Banner over and over and over again. Um, the next story we have is the Viennese Opera Ball, which is very uncomfortable in many ways. Um, that's true of all of these stories. Um, it's basically like framed as a conversation between abortion doctors, kind of, that like leads to some other things. That like occasionally is broken by a reminder that we are at the Viennese Opera Ball. The next story is Me and Miss Mandible. It's the one that's like called out on the back cover as how do they say it on the back cover? Um, Yet these predicaments, although bizarre, inane, and usually surrealistic, do not necessarily contain the morose connotations of most writers of the absurd. For example, in one tale, the narrator is 35 years old, 6 feet tall, with the logic and reasoning of an adult. He's in the 6th grade, where Miss Mandible, his teacher, is frustrated in her desires to have an affair with him because, officially, he is a child. it's got an exclamation point at the end. That's um, this story is like presented as a series of diary entries from a man who has lived a full life as like a insurance claims adjuster, um, as a veteran, and who is in the sixth grade being sort of re-educated. I think is explicitly referred to. Um, and sort of his internal monologue about the sexuality of sixth graders and his not like his lack of place in this situation. It is absolutely the centerpiece of this collection. I don't know that I'm remotely okay with it. The next story is called Marie Hold On Tight, and it's about a group of people who picket a church and then I believe a um hmm, just a department store maybe. Again, this is written in the early 60s, so like a department store is like a meaningful thing here, um in ways that I don't even entirely comprehend. um oh, the picket therefore shifted the site of the demonstration to Rockefeller Plaza in wow. uh the site of the demonstration to Rockefeller Plaza in Rockefeller Center. I still said it wrong. um So it goes from in front of a church to Midtown Manhattan, I guess. I don't know. I don't know New York like that. I'm sorry. Um, it's a group of people protesting in a picket fashion the human condition, and it's a lot of. I mean, their slogans are things like "Why are you standing where you're standing? The soul is not. No more art, culture, love. Remember, you are dust." And then what's the other examples? Um, yeah, and it's like sort of written as this like letter to this character Marie who never really shows up, but like maybe had a hand in making the signs because they aren't waterproof. But it starts in a rainstorm in front of the church. They're like the one of the pastors comes out and is like, "Oh, y'all like Kierkegaard? I see. I sense some of the spirit of Kierkegaard here," and it's fine. I don't know. It's fine. And then we have Up Aloft in the Air, which is one of the ones that I kind of want to reread, actually, maybe more than any of the other ones. I think this might be the most interesting of the stories. It's sort of, I say that very speculatively. I don't know that it's more interesting than any of the others. I don't know that it's less interesting. I just, this is the one that didn't feel so obvious to me, maybe. Um, it's sort of structured. It's got like the one, two, three, four, five subheadings, as in like like sort of chapter breaks within a short story. Um, and it's got the broad sense that like there is each subheading is a different city. There's like Cincinnati, Toledo. Um, I read this like literally a number of hours ago, and I've already sort of blanked. Akron in Ohio is one of them. Um, yeah, Cincinnati, Toledo, Akron, Cincinnati, and there's like one other that Cleveland maybe I think is yeah. Um, it, it's it's about plane crashes and sort of the hmm, sort of the character of cities, I guess, in this very irreverent way. And I think that's what I've got for now on this story. So the next one we have is Margins, which is a weird, like, I don't know, like vague attempt at tackling race relations or skewering them or something. It's bad. Then we have the Joker's Greatest Triumph, which is a story in which a man named Franklin goes to visit Bruce Wayne on Tuesdays, and they hang out and talk about things like whether they're drinking tomato juice with a little bit of vodka in it, and then the Joker like lays a trap and unveils Batman, and then Franklin is like, "All right, see you next Tuesday." Um, not in the not in the way that "see you next Tuesday" is a thing. But listen, okay. Um, then we have To London and Rome, which is like one of actually the more interesting ones, maybe like the second most interesting, I think. Um, Again, I'm gonna do the thing where I just like hold this up to the camera and it like doesn't make any sense at all. But like what you can maybe kind of see from this video is that the bulk of the text is written sort of normally. It's like you know there's a lot of words along the page, and then in the sort of margins, like here and here, there are almost like stage directions. Um, for instance, like, and I think this is how you're supposed to read this, where uh, you are actually just, I think, supposed to read this left to right in a weird way, but like with columns as a breaking thing. So like, uh, he is beautiful, Allison said. A frontrunner too, I said, and then we're jumping over to the margins. There was an interval of several days. Then Allison and I drove the car with the trailer up the ramp into the plane, and we flew back to Milwaukee. And then if we start back in the regular text, after stopping for lunch at Howard Johnson's, where we fed Dan some fried clams, which he seemed to like very much, Allison said, "Do you know what we've completely forgotten? I knew that there was something, but although I thought hard, I could not imagine what it was." "There's no place to keep him in our apartment building," Allison said. Allison said triumphantly, pointing at Dan. She was, of course, absolutely right, and I hastily bought a large three-story house in Milwaukee's best suburb. To make the house more comfortable, I bought a concert grand piano. So this is a story about like a dude um, buying a lot of things on credit in the early 60s, which is like interesting. Um, I'm not a scholar, uh, not even a critic. I'm not even a YouTuber. I don't know. I am nothing. Um, but there, there. I guess this is the moment where I sort of pause, because I'm about to talk about the last story and then end this thing because this is way longer than I had intended to talk about any of this book. It's again, this book as a whole, completely unremarkable to me. I am still curious about reading more of Barthelme's work, but like these stories did very little. And when I say like this is like number one and number two, I'm like that I could never encounter these again in my life and I'd be fine. But there is something interesting about a story about like just writing checks and naming the names of the banks that they are coming from in the early 60s. And there's like a moment where like this character Peter is his name, Peter, gets called out, or not called out in the sense that we use that terminology at this point, but gets called for overdrafting by like $300,000, and then the story just keeps moving. I think there's like I I assume there is a sort of absurdist critique of financialization happening here. Um, it's not one that hits for me particularly, either emotionally or like on a gut level. or like in terms of like my understanding of the progression of financial systems over the last 300 years or whatever. Um, but it's close enough that I'm like, maybe this is a thing. And that's, I guess, exactly how I feel about this book. Maybe this is a thing. This is close enough. This is close enough that maybe this is a thing. That seems like a good endpoint, honestly. Um, the last story in this collection is A Shower of Gold. It starts with because he needed the money, Peterson answered an ad that said, "We'll pay you to be on TV if your opinions are strong enough or your personal experiences have a flavor of the unusual." He called the number and was told to come to room 1551 in the Gray Bar building in Lexington. This he did, and after spending 20 minutes with a Miss Arbor who asked him if he had ever been in an analysis before, who asked him if he had ever been in an analysis, was okayed for a program called Who Am I? Um, this is like the thesis statement of this book. And it's not it's like fine. It's or at least it's the one that pegs it as a clearly a sort of absurdist text that is taking absurdism not in the way that Albert Camus like was positioning it as a philosophy to being invested in life, but as a sense of like haha how weird, um or that's maybe reductive. The big scenes in this last story, I'm done here. um the big scenes in the last story are like there's a moment where Peterson has um taken the $200 that he'll get for this TV appearance. He's a minor artist. There's like a sequence where uh, Peterson goes to the barber, and his barber is named Kitchen, and Kitchen is explaining to him the I and thou of I believe Nietzsche. There's a lot of Nietzsche in here. There's a tiny bit of Kierkegaard. There's a handful of other like yeah proto existentialist, I guess, mostly authors that are referenced. Um, it's fine. It's fine. I wouldn't recommend it. Like, I don't. I think The Dead Father is a much more interesting book, even though I think it's like significantly more fucked in many ways. How the fuck did I talk about this book for 24 minutes? Um, listen, I was going to come into this with a very low energy because I'm very tired. And then I had a conversation with a housemate, and again, this is a Just Bees book club, so everyone here is a bee. We had a conversation. We learned that the uh what is it called? Like automatic eyeliner. It's like eyeliner pencil is like is sharpenable with a pencil sharpener. We're both having trouble with this. We figured it out together. Mostly my housemate, who for these purposes is named B, uh, figured this out, and it was the most simultaneously gratifying and upsetting thing of all time. And so maybe that's the energy I came into this with that wasn't really relevant to the book. I don't know. There are so many possible reasons that I would have ended up talking about this for 25 minutes at this point. Yeah, 25 minutes at this point. And one of them is that I just haven't just said thank you for not watching.